We've had your colleague Tobias Alwood on the show earlier saying he is very concerned, Mr. Hancock, about this major incident in Bournemouth. It seems like there are thousands of people swarming to the beaches, not practicing social distancing. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, well, people need to keep following the social distancing. It's there for a reason. The last thing anybody wants is this virus to get going again and to take off. And if people respond to the changes that we've been able to make by without and stop the social distancing, then the virus doesn't respect the fact that it's a hot summer's day. The virus spreads from social contact, and that's why we've still got social distancing in place, even though we're able from next weekend to be able to reopen some things that we weren't before, because we've got it under control. And let's not throw away all that good work. We shouldn't throw away the progress we've made. We shouldn't go backwards. We've got to keep the social distancing and keep respecting the fact that we've got to stop the transmission of this disease.
I mean, I'm very much all for the common sense message, right? I've always loved the stay alert message. I think the onus does have to be on us. But when you see those types of scenes, do you think perhaps in extreme situations you should consider shutting beaches?
Well, we do have that power. I'm reluctant to use it because, people have had a pretty tough lockdown, and I want people to be, obviously, everybody should be able to enjoy the sunshine. The key is to do it with respect. Stay with your household, stay a good distance from other households. Outside is safer than inside. You've got to respect the rules. You've got to respect the fact that social distancing is still important. And we do have those powers. And if we see a spike in the number of cases, then we will take action. And we have taken that sort of local action already over the last few weeks in some other parts of the country. And we'll keep absolutely vigilant.
Because I guess you must be worried that it could put real pressure on the test and trace scheme.
Well, the test and trace scheme is there to tackle exactly this sort of problem. And, I've seen, the test and trace scheme has spare capacity. That's a good thing. So I'm not worried about the test and trace scheme not being able to cope with it. I'm worried that every positive case, every extra transmission that the test and trace scheme has to deal with is another person who's got coronavirus. That's what I want to stop. So I'm less worried about the operational side. I'm much more worried about the spread of the disease. And unless we respect social distancing, then unfortunately, as we've seen in some other parts of the world, then the disease comes back and we have to take action. And we're perfectly prepared to. We've seen in North Germany, in North Rhine-Westphalia, that lander of Germany, they've brought in a whole new full-blown lockdown. And
some parts of the US
I don't want to have
well.
to do that. Yeah, well, yes. I mean, it's really taking off in some parts of the rest of the world. And, I don't want to have to do that. We are, at the moment, the local lockdowns we're having to do are really focused, some schools or a GP surgery or an individual factory, as opposed to a whole area. And that's a much, much better, more targeted way of doing it.
On the Test and Trace app, do we actually even need it? Because if you look internationally, for example, Australia, where there is an app, I've been listening a lot to government ministers over there who have had real trouble getting any more than 25% of the population to download it. If we have this effective test and trace scheme going on, why do we need the app?
Yeah, well, it does help. It does help because the app will be able to identify some people who you don't know the contact details of. So it does help, but at the moment, the scheme is working well. New figures out today showing over 100,000 people are isolating because of the NHS test and trace scheme. So the scheme is working well, but the app is an additional resource. But one of the things we learned is that the human contact tracing is more important than the technology. People are more likely to respond to getting a phone call from another human being and told that there's a problem and you're going to have to isolate. Nevertheless, I'm still determined to get the app up and running as well, and make sure it works.
It's pretty outrageous, isn't it? The lack of help that we've had from Google and Apple, given we're in an international health emergency. I mean, all of the language coming out of those two companies, especially Apple, has not exactly been ideal, has it?
Well, over the last few days, they have really come to the table, actually, and so I'm not going to criticize them. I'm really glad that over the last few days they've come to the table and started.
So you are doing this work together now.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, and we've merged the work on the two different programs that we were running. We were working on both that version, the Apple Google version, and our own version. And now we've merged that work.
Now, of course, I have to ask you about the breaking news in the Labour Party today. More civil war in that party. Rebecca Long-Bailey, the Shadow Education Secretary, sacked by Keir Starmer after posting a very unpleasant article which features the actress Maxine Peake. Saying that the tactics used by the police in America kneeling on George Floyd's neck was learned from seminars with Israeli secret services. She refused to delete that tweet. Keir Starmer has sacked her for it. Do you think he did the right thing?
Well, I think he did, but it points to a wider problem of anti-Semitism running deep. And we should be against racism of all sorts, including anti-Semitism. We know the problem that the Labour Party's got with anti-Semitism. I think Keir Starmer had no choice but to see somebody in the shadow cabinet continue to support these sorts of views is abhorrent. And I think the whole of society needs to stand against racism of all forms.
So to clarify, you think Rebecca Long-Bailey? You think Rebecca Long-Bailey is anti-Semitic?
Well, I think that she supported and promoted a piece that clearly was. That's that is the wrong thing to do, very clearly, and obviously she had to resign. But there's clearly a deep problem that needs to be fully rooted out.
Matt Hancock, Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, thank you so much for being here. Do come back again.